Hello and welcome to the June edition of Coffee with the Pastors. I'm Pastor Daniel Hanson alongside Pastor Dan Gerrietts. We have our favorite beverages with you today. We hope you'll join us as we spend some time chatting about Trinity's life and mission in this new season of summer. Happy June to you. I have to say June is the best month of the year, but I'm a little bit biased.
Yeah, you just had a birthday
It's
a while
birthday
ago.
month. It's baseball month. The weather is
Yeah.
probably as good as it gets. So I always look forward to June, but sadly, June's almost halfway over. It is halfway over.
Yeah. I feel like June's the month that might go the fastest of all of them because, and I don't know if it's because we look forward to summer for so long and then it finally gets here. And like anything you really look forward to, then when it actually comes, it seems to go by quicker. But June just goes boom like that. And then all of a sudden it's the July 4th and everybody's like, oh, the summer's half over and all of that. But yeah, I agree. June's a good month.
We could maybe petition to add a few more days to the month. Take a couple from May, a couple from July, and
Yeah.
that seems like of all the problems the world has, that's probably one that should move up a couple steps on the.
Yeah, why not have 35 or 36 days, right, in June? Let's do it. Let's start that.
Well, we'll add that to our to-do list of things to petition for. But and things more exciting to everybody else. We have some fun updates here at Trinity. We will be welcoming some new staff very soon. In fact, we don't want to extend June any longer because both staff will be starting July 1st. But would you
Yeah.
like to introduce our new pastor of spiritual care?
Yes, absolutely. I feel like these searches are like two very different search processes for those that have been paying attention. Our pastoral spiritual care search has been going on for a long time. I mean, going back to when Pastor Kathy Graves left our staff, it's been what, almost 2 years now. We're coming up a little less than 2 years, but it's been a while. And then we had a great interim with Pastor Dan Dahl, and then he went back home here in the fall. And so we were really eager to welcome somebody else into that role, beginning kind of last fall. And we were a little surprised actually that it took as long as it did, but we're thrilled with the person that has surfaced for us that God has kind of brought to us. And I'm going to just share here for a moment so that we can look at some pictures and some stats. But Pastor Beverly Butler is coming on board here in January as our new pastor of spiritual care. And we are just thrilled. Pastor Beverly is somebody that is very familiar with Trinity in our ministry. She has been a part of some of the ministries here, including health ministries, faith and wellness outreach ministries, alongside Becky Ellsburn for a number of years. Pastor Butler is ordained in the Methodist Church. She has been a Methodist pastor for quite some time. She has served congregations here locally. Recently, she was a part of a multi-point parish here, basically as their preaching pastor in the Shell Rock Valley Parish of the United Methodist Church. So that's like Norris Springs, Red, Plymouth, Rock Falls. She also has served on the spiritual care staff at Mercy One North Iowa for a number of years now. And so I think a lot of folks have had contact with her either through her involvement here at Trinity or her ministry at the hospital, or just as someone who has been in the area for a while. But Beverly is very experienced and gifted in pastoral care. She, again, has been a big supporter and participant in our faith and wellness, health kinds of ministries. And we are just really thrilled to have her come on in this role for us that is really about being our lead pastor for pastoral care. She'll kind of come alongside Becky Ellsburn on our team, along with the two of us, to be a part of this pastoral care team. And her primary focus, Beverly, is going to be about 15 hours a week for us. And her primary focus area is going to be on hospital visitation, care ministry support. We've been talking these last months about this phenomenal team of lay people who are doing pastoral care ministry through home communions and those kinds of things. We call it the care ministry. She's going to be a major support person for that ministry when there's need for a pastoral visit, in kind of helping equip those those leaders in ministry. She's going to be a part of that along with Becky Ellsburn. And then funeral and bereavement ministry are going to be a big part of her role as well. One of the questions people keep asking is she going to be there on Sundays for worship? And the answer is absolutely. She'll be there for worship leadership. She'll be in the preaching rotation about once every 6 weeks, as we've often done with this role in the past. She is going to remain part of the reason that she only wanted to be 15 hours a week. We wanted actually to find someone closer to full-time or full-time. Beverly felt really strongly about remaining a part of the spiritual care team at Mercy One North Iowa. And so we said, you know what, that's perfectly fine. She's going to continue that role there, but then also give us about half of her time as well here on staff. And I think that's going to be a beautiful partnership in a lot of ways, because she's already at one of the primary places where this person on our team has provided leadership and service. So it'll mean a few other shifts. You know, Becky Ellsburn has been extending her hours during this interim period. She's agreed to continue to do that. And those who have been around Trinity know that Becky is an amazing leader in this area and in many others. And so we're going to kind of shuffle that around. I know you and I, that means that we'll probably do a little bit more of some of these types of things too, to kind of balance that out. But I think that we're both kind of eager for that and excited for that. And I think all of these pieces, kind of like a puzzle, are going to fit together pretty nicely. But just thrilled to have Beverly joining us and coming on board. And I know the call committee was really excited when she said yes to the call.
Awesome. Well, similar to when Pastor Dahl was here, I think what's extra unique and special about Pastor Beverly is she knows a little bit about Trinity, right? She's had connections here in the past, and so it's not completely having to learn a new community, which having just done that, it takes a long time
Oh, yeah.
to do. And so to have someone, I mean, there'll be obviously some of that, but to have some familiarity, to already have relationships built in this place, what a gift to be able to call her as part of the staff and part of the team.
Yeah. And you know, we've had some people have said, oh, that's interesting, right, that she's not ordained Lutheran. And I think, you know, Beverly's kind of joked about, you know, learning to speak Lutheran and those kind of things. I think she does it pretty well, actually. And especially as a hospital chaplain, you learn really well how to come alongside people of different faiths and different traditions than your own. So, I mean, that's something that I think she does really naturally. But, you know, the other piece is the ELCA years ago, oh man, probably close to 10 years ago or more now, entered into a full communion agreement with United Methodist Church. And what that really meant was that our leaders could serve in the other denomination. We shared pulpit and we shared altar, so that you could preside over communion and you could preach in those other places. And so the beautiful thing about that is it's not a difficult process to call a Methodist pastor to a Lutheran church or vice versa, to an ELCA church or vice versa. There's a little bit of kind of jumping through hoops that we have to do, but it's really not overly difficult. And we've done it before. I mean, Pastor Kathy came to us from the covenant tradition. She had more hoops to jump through because we weren't in full communion with them. But we've had Presbyterian pastors that have served on staff before my time. And in some ways, I think it makes our diversity as leaders and as pastors even richer, you know, to have those different experiences. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it was great. Congregational meeting was great for those that weren't there. It was a big turnout. The vote was unanimous. There was a lot of good energy and good vibes on that day we voted for Beverly. So we're just excited now to get her on board.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, less than 2 weeks away, so that will be coming soon. Do we know when she'll have her installation or
Yeah, so we just scheduled this. Her first time preaching is going to be the last Sunday in July, which is the last weekend, the 27th and 28th of July. And her installation will also be that weekend. And so we'll have a celebration for her between services and do the rite of installation as a part of that service. So yeah, just a couple of weeks in. Give her a few weeks, you know, to kind of get her feet on the ground and get settled. But that'll be the big celebration for her coming in.
awesome? I've
Now, the
always
other search was a little bit quicker, right?
The other search was a little bit quicker, yes, and our previous young youth and young adult director, Christian Carlson, announced he was taking a new position in February and stay with us until March. And so we kind of wondered how long would this search process go? Would it be similar to the pastor one that took over a year, or it turned out to be very different? And so we posted actually in the middle of May of this year, and immediately had several candidates interested in the position and are very excited to extend an offer to Danny Vogel, who will be our new uh, young adult, excuse me, youth director. We've changed the name a little bit. Christian, was he served in this role, served primarily um, with high schoolers and with young adults. But Danny is going to be having an emphasis in those areas, but will also be spending a little bit more emphasis in elementary and in middle school ministry and some support roles in that way. So we are very excited to welcome her. She is coming to us from Chico, California, which I confess I had to look up on a map. I didn't know where it was. Uh, California is a big state, but Danny has roots here in the Midwest, has some family in southern Minnesota, is a grad of Wartburg College. So I have my favorite Wartburg Bee Orange, stress orange, to celebrate a fellow Wartburg grad. But she brings a plethora of youth ministry experience from some different contexts. She served at St. Paul's Lutheran in Waverly in our own synod, so knows about northeastern Iowa, has lived here before, and so a fun personality. As we interviewed her, it was really fun to hear. You could tell you weren't. Sometimes interviews feel a little stale. I don't know. Like you wonder, is this the person or is this like the best image of that person they're trying to put forward? As we interviewed Danny, I definitely felt like this is who Danny is, and she is a lot of fun. Huge passion for faith, to teach others and accompany others in following Jesus. A love of pop culture. I found a fellow person who loves Marvel and that kind of world. But what I am especially excited about is she loves to connect pop culture to questions of faith. So I'm excited to see what her creativity, her spirit of fun, her passion for young people, and helping them grow in their faith, how that can help us here at Trinity, and how those gifts are going to work alongside the other members of our team to really hopefully take things the next step, and see where they go. So
Yeah. I mean, sitting from a step away from a lot of those ministries, because you obviously work a lot closer with high school and middle school and elementary youth. I think it was really great to see in the last year, especially some real momentum get built up with the high school
mm,
ministry and thinking about how do we really continue to draw high school youth into the life of the church. Because as we all know, I mean, all of the cultural changes and challenges that make that, I mean, kids are busy. We've got a couple high schoolers ourselves, and they're so busy, they're so programmed, and to find really authentic, meaningful ways for them to build community and be a part of the wider faith community is getting to be a bigger and bigger challenge. But I was so grateful for the kind of the things that built up this year, and I know we were worried, right, about the momentum of that. How do we keep that going with Christian leading in that position, turning over, and just what a gift to have Danny kind of fall into our laps and to be so interested in such a strong sense of call
yeah.
here, and familiar, like you said, familiarity with not just our church but our community. I mean, she talked about growing up, coming down to see relatives in Mason City, and really knows the city already pretty well, which all of this was just an incredible surprise to us, but really cool to see.
Yeah, so we're excited. She will actually be joining us on our trip down to New Orleans for the youth gathering coming up. So excited that right away she gets to jump into that experience and get to know a number of our high school youth in that way. And yeah, and as you said, that was a concern I had, right? Christian had done such great work to help build up the program, and it takes time to do that. And so to be able to have a person jump right in and be able to pick up with all the great work that he did, and that's a huge gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now fortunately the one strike against her is that she also swears allegiance to the north side of Chicago.
That's right.
Um,
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Um, so, if others are looking for some Schadenfreude experiences, Danny too can be one that we can remind Cub fans of in September when they inevitably disappoint. Um,
I just love that she put it in her profile,
yeah,
in the bio. I just think that's so great.
my
That's
sense is she's actually a bigger football fan.
yeah, yeah.
Big Vikings fan. So if you're Viking fans, one of the comments that stuck out to me is she said, "I remember where I was when Gary Anderson missed the field goal." And I feel like that is true Viking fandom.
Yeah. If you're a Vikings fan, you know exactly what she's talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll have to find out what other sports allegiances she has, and
Yeah. Well, talking about the gathering, I mean, you're getting ready, right? You're getting closer to go to the National Youth Gathering. It's been a while since we've had one in the
yes.
LCA because of COVID, right? It was 2018 was the last time that we had a gathering.
Houston was the last one. So we had there was regional gatherings and was it 22? So there was supposed to have been a gathering in Minneapolis and it just post-COVID didn't work out. And so I know Christian and you went with a group to Minneapolis to do kind of there was some churches that said we're still going to have a gathering of some kind. But that was a very different experience. That was more,
Yeah.
probably in the hundreds of
Couple,
participants.
yeah, a few hundred versus thousands. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we're excited to be heading down to New Orleans, middle of the month, and so we are under a month countdown. The bus is reserved. We'll be headed down. We've got our tickets to the bayou to check out the alligators. But more importantly, excited to hear the speakers, to be able to meet with the 15 to 20,000 other participants that are signed up right now. They have us booked in the Smoothie King Center, which I didn't know Smoothie King was a thing, but that's where the Pelicans play basketball. And so, and they said we're filling every seat, and so it's going to be rocking in that arena. And having been to gatherings, I struggle to even describe the experience because there's something about when you gather together. I mean, maybe it's not unlike going to a sporting event, like if you're going to a home game, right? Like there's this sense of like, oh, like even though these people I haven't met, right? I don't know anything about them. We still have this connection together.
Yeah.
And I think especially in the youth ministry world, that's a really powerful experience because sometimes we feel isolated. I think increasingly so in our faith. But to look around and to be packing an arena and dancing around, listening to music, to hearing speakers, to sharing a common experience together, it's really a once in a lifetime kind of deal.
It is. And it's such a cool legacy in the Lutheran Church too. I mean, going back to the predecessor bodies of the LCA too, the American Lutheran Church or the Lutheran Church in America, they each had their own gatherings. I know in the ALC, which is what Trinity was before we became a part of the LCA. The ALC had some amazing gatherings in places. I know we have some people at Trinity. Every time a gathering comes up, you hear the stories again of some folks who were like at Miami Beach and in 58 or 60 or whenever it was when Martin Luther King Jr. was a speaker at the National Youth Gathering, the National Lutheran Youth Gathering, and I think that tradition has carried on through the years. I remember in 1994 being in Atlanta as a young high schooler, and just the witness of coming out of the dome with, like you said, thousands of people you have this thing in common with, and literally just changing the look of a downtown, changing the feel of a city as you are going from here to there and interacting with people as you're serving, or even just going to restaurants and things like that. It's incredible. People are like, "What is this? What is going on? Why are there 20,000 high school kids invading this downtown?" And you get to then tell that story and witness, in a way, get to witness to our faith. So I think it's one of the coolest things that the LCA does. I've thought that for years, and to have been a part of a couple trips here from Trinity, have seen with the kids the difference that it makes. Like you said, to feel that you're not alone in faith is really, it's really amazing.
I think New Orleans is especially a great context, right? Because there's so much culture and history to the city,
Yeah,
and it's an easy city to get around, right? Which is
yeah,
great because we'll our Fitbits will buzz every at the end of every day because we will hit our step count
man, will
getting
you
around.
ever?
But historically, I think New Orleans has been an amazing host city. It has so many great places to explore, so much great culture, music, food to that's all right there, right? It's all in the same area. And so yeah,
For
so
sure.
we are ready. We'll be even more ready when in a couple weeks when we're ready to go. But it's been fun. It's a lot of work to get to this day, and so I think it's worth saying a huge thank you to the congregation for supporting. It is the one downside of the gathering. It's an expensive trip when you consider the hotels, the bus, the food. And so we are appreciative of everyone's support that made this possible and excited. We're traveling with some other churches. We're traveling with St. James here in town, with Crossroads Parish, and then my old parish, St. Paul in Hampton.
Mm,
A lot of churches had just a couple folks, and so they joined up with us. And so with adults, we have 35 going down to New Orleans, and so good sized group, and really looking forward to that. So
that's awesome. Well, yeah, I think definitely thanks to the congregation. I thought you all did an amazing job fundraising, in a lot of really creative ways for a while now, and it was neat to see the support of the congregation. Trinity loves to support its kids, and it's been that way for a long time. But to help them have these encounters and experiences, it's a really great thing. Think it's going to be warm when you're down there?
I looked at that because it's like, what are the average temperatures for the week of middle of July? And the answer was 92 degrees is
Oh,
and
that's a
the
damp 92 as
yeah,
well. It's a
well,
humid,
the
humid.
Germans have a word, schwül is the name for humid. And I've always thought that that was a helpful word to, embrace humidity. So it's going to be hot. Yeah. So hopefully it doesn't rain too much, or if it does, the rain is refreshing. But
They have the air on in the Smoothie Kingdom.
yeah, the air will be on in the Smoothie Kingdom, and fortunately, there's lots of indoor options. Well, we'll be spending a lot of time outside, lots of things to do inside too. But we are already practicing our "Have you had a drink of water?" Because
Yes.
we need to now. Everyone will be happier if you stay hydrated, including
Yes,
yourself.
indeed. Well, thanks for leading that kind of a trip too. I know that it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work as well for you. So we're grateful for your all of your prep and as well as what you'll do when you're actually on the trip. So thanks for
It's
that.
gonna be a great time. Well, other thing I have on my list is semi-annual meeting is coming up. So
Yeah.
that is at the end of June. What do we have to look forward to at that meeting?
Yeah, well, probably the big thing that people need to be aware about with the semi-annual this year is that we've been doing a lot of work among the council and with the staff on what we're calling a visioning listening process. It's not really a strategic plan. I wouldn't call it a strategic plan. It's been more about just taking a look at kind of what our strengths and weaknesses are at this point here at Trinity and what our opportunities and what are some of the threats that face us too. It's a very common kind of process to identify some direction and some areas of focus for the congregation. So we're going to be sharing some of the work that the council and the staff have been doing on that, inviting people's feedback, and also talking about we're at a point in that process where we're kind of zeroed in on some of those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and we're ready to really drill down a little bit more and name some specific initiatives to kind of address those. So that's what we're going to do. I think it's really important for the congregation to be aware of this and to be involved in it too. It's a little bit tricky sometimes to do that kind of a process with a big congregation like ours, but this is one of those places and times that people that are interested in that really should come and be a part of that. We're also continuing to work on the capital appeal. We're very close with the T-150 to kind of ending that, and so we have possibly an exciting announcement to make about that. I'll just put that little tease out there for the semi-annual too. And then also just some other updates on kind of ministry that's happening. The columbarium has changed a little bit here recently. We'll talk a little bit about that, and yeah, a few other things. So yeah, it won't be a real long meeting. We're going to do it between services on Sunday the 30th, the last Sunday of the month here. And our goal is to try to get the majority of it done between the early service and the late service so that people can be a part of it. So
Awesome. So mark your calendars, June 30th.
yeah,
Well, that'll be exciting to see what comes out of that visioning process. I don't know how you feel, but I can feel like you get stuck in the current of ministry, and it just feels like you have to hold on and just go, right? And you just go with it, and I think processes like this are so helpful to get a broader picture of maybe the road needs to change or shift, or where energy needs to be put in different areas, and that can be really life-giving, right? Instead of just going with the flow all the time, because it'll take you, the current will go. Um,
totally. And I think especially as communities of faith, right? Like we should be about discernment and about really trying to hear and listen where God is calling us and leading us so that we aren't just kind of drifting along and just reacting, but that there has been some intentional thought and prayer around what is God gifting us to do and what are the opportunities and what are the things that we need to be focused on that could be challenges in the future. And yeah, so I think you're exactly right. I think it's good to do it. We really, in a lot of ways, operated through the T150 project and appeal. That really functioned in a lot of ways like our strategic plan for probably 6 or 7 years. And then COVID kind of hit toward the end of that. And then we were really just about surviving through the pandemic and figuring out how to do church during the pandemic and then coming out of the pandemic. And it was last year that we kind of went, okay, I think it's time now to take a look again and to really see where God is calling us and that it was time for a new plan and a new kind of process. So it's been good. I think our council is pretty remarkable. It's a remarkable group of leaders in that they care deeply about the church. They're really engaged in a broad connection of ways, or a broad kind of category of ways. Same thing for the staff, right? We all have different areas that of the body that we kind of work in or that we interact with the most. But I think everybody too is also really honest about what some of the challenges are. And when we see them all around us, and in some ways we've been a little bit sheltered from them because of the particular gifts that I think Trinity has in our place in the wider church. But it's been really fun, if that's the right word, to talk with the council about, yeah, like what are some things that we could be doing that we're not, or that we could be doing better, or what are some threats that we see on the horizon that we really should be praying about and talking about so that we can continue to carry out God's ministry in this place. And when you can do that from a place of we really appreciate who we are, we feel good about so much of our life together, but we also want to be honest about what the threats are. That's a phenomenal process to get to
yeah.
have, that we don't have to be afraid of something negative that's said or something like that. You can really be open and honest and yeah, and see what the possibilities are. So it's been fun. And I'm excited to share that with the congregation.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we'll look forward to hearing that and see where that leads us. Well, speaking of discernment, I thought we could maybe end our time today with a question about welcoming and about creating space for folks. And I got thinking as we are welcoming Pastor Beverly Butler and Danny Vogel onto the staff, right? We kind of go through this process of thinking about how do we welcome someone as a part of the team into this space. I think that's a good question. I think an even maybe more applicable question for us all is to wonder how are we creating space for people who aren't yet here as part of our community? Um, I don't know what the answer to that question is. But I once had someone talk about that they were praying for people who were going to come someday and show up, and be a part of the community, but they weren't here yet. And the implication of that prayer was also some action of what do we as a community need to do to prepare ourselves, knowing that there's going to be some people coming through the doors, or that we're called to invite to be a part of this. community. So I think I'll just throw that question out there. And I don't know if maybe it's just a pondering kind of question. Um,
I think it's a phenomenal question, particularly at this moment culturally, where we all know the trends of religious communities and participation in them. But at the same time, I think like here at Trinity, we have seen continued new people show up, right? And it's been fun for me to watch in the years just that I've been here to see how Trinity as a community has worked to help answer that question. How do we prepare and how do we really create room for people that are not yet here? I think the temptation in any community where you have a sense of we really like who we are and we like how we're being together, it's very easy to look at new people and go, all right, your first task is to figure out how to fit into this, right? You need to start acting and talking and looking like the majority of us, right? I think that's the temptation that comes out of probably a pretty innocent place, right? Of just trying to preserve what's good.
mhm,
But I think the real challenge of welcoming new people is recognizing that truth that they may change who we are,
mm,
right? And that we have to be open to that, that we can still be a wonderful community, but it may look different than it did
mm,
whenever the time was before that you want to look back to. So, I mean, I think the new member Sunday that we had in May was a great example of that. You know, we did something really different. We had the reception of new members as a part of the 9 o'clock service. It was Mother's Day, so it was a pretty big turnout. And then instead of doing a meal, kind of just for the new members and the sponsors, which we've done for years and years and years, because of the date, honestly, we did a reception between services, and we had the entire congregation put on name tags that day
mm,
and kind of pretend like everybody was introducing everybody to everybody else. And it was interesting. We were talking to ministries committee. They're the group that kind of oversees that for us. And ministries was like, that was so powerful. It was such a simple thing, but such a powerful thing to go, especially in a congregation like ours, where there are lots of us that don't know everybody else. Even
mhm,
if you've gone here for years, what a powerful thing for us to always remember, we're always all kind of new and introducing ourselves to each other all the time.
mhm,
And so in a way, we're always having to create space for each other and recognizing that we all need to be welcomed. Whether we've come here for 40 years, we still want to show up and have somebody go, man, it's good to see you.
yeah,
It's good that you're here today, right? Or whether you're brand new for the first time. And so that, yeah, that culture of welcome and openness, and not be afraid to say to somebody, hey, I don't know if I know your name, right?
mhm.
And to say hello. I think that's one of the ways we do it.
I would go so far as to challenge people to embarrass themselves. Like,
Mm,
to say if you do introduce yourself to someone and they have been Trinity members for 40 years, well, how great. Now you know someone who's been a member here for 40,
yeah.
that's what's going on in my head, right? Like, oh, I'm afraid to be like, oh, this is a longtime person who I should know, or they've gone to a different service that I'm used to going to, and so maybe they go here, and so I'm afraid to talk to them. But uh, yeah, I mean, maybe it's embarrassing for 10 seconds, but if you make a connection, how great is that, right? That now you who've been here 30 years know someone else who's, whatever. Or um
Yeah,
it,
that's so great.
um
To have the courage, right, to be able to do that. That's really what it's about. Yeah.
because I think I think is really fun to see is when connections are made in a faith community, and then those like go and like there turns out to be some like shared energy towards something, right? And maybe that's service in a particular area, or maybe that's volunteering in another area. But the sense of like, oh, now you have a buddy to do it with, right? And I just think there's a lot of power in that. But you got to know the people, right? You got to know other people to find those connections and yeah. It's a little scary, especially if you're a shy or introverted person, right? To go put yourself out there, but you never know. You might be introducing yourself to a great friend who you don't know yet.
Yeah.
And
Well, as I think about church engagement, I think that's the other piece of it that it continues to morph and change. I feel like the school of thought probably 40 years ago was, the one area of church engagement everybody should be involved in is worship
hmm,
or or worship and Bible study. And while those are still central places, I mean, it's still the place where the majority of us probably connect. I think one of the things that's really changed in Christian community life is the number of additional ways, very valid and important ways that people connect and practice their faith within the community outside of those. And I think one of the shifts that we've had to make in the church is to recognize that and to really kind of lean into that in some ways, provide opportunities for people with different gifts and passions to use those gifts and passions to serve the Lord in those other ways. So I think that's another way that we probably make room for people that aren't here, is we kind of go, what are some ways of living in Christian community that we haven't provided inroads for yet? And it could be something totally outside of the box of what we have done. I think about, the faith and wellness activities this week of like the bike rides and the canoeing and those kind of things. Like those are done in the sake of Christian community. Would we have thought 40 years ago that, going for a bike ride as a church program was like going to be a way that people, but it is a way that people connect and they experience God's presence and each other. And that's, I think, one of the beauties and the gifts here, that we get to do that. We get to try all these different things because different folks can get involved and lead those things and take them. And
Absolutely. Well, as we get ready to welcome Pastor Butler and Danny to Trinity, encourage you to throw open the welcome wagon, introduce yourself. There'll be lots of names to learn, and so please offer your grace. But yeah, we are excited to welcome them. But also, as we think about welcoming other new people who will be coming in this next year, who we can't even dream about yet, they're on their way. How can God's Holy Spirit open our hearts to welcome them to our mission and serving God? So, good question, I think, to leave with us today. So. Well, we will wrap it up for the rest of today. Hopefully your beverage is almost to the end. I just have a little bit left, but we will look forward to joining you next time for Coffee with the Pastors. But until then, may God's blessings go with you. We'll see you next time.
bye-bye.